Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we have a fun show for you guys here today. We are in episode 11. We are deep, well, not too deep, but we've started the NBA offseason. Drama and rumors are flying just like they are in high school hallways. Montana, how excited are you for the NBA offseason?
I'm really excited. I'm a little scared as a Lakers fan because there's a lot of crucial moves that will or as of today won't happen. But I'm excited. It's always a fun thing to tune into, and I think we have some pretty big names that are going to go some different places. I think we're going to see some new faces and new places once we start this next season up. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be fantastic, and I think we're going to have some big surprises as we always seem to have in the NBA offseason.
No, for sure. I couldn't agree more. Well, let the tampering begin. Free agency starts Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Unless you are the Bucks, the Bulls, and the Miami Heat, and you want to start early, forfeit a second round draft pick. Oh no, not a second round draft pick. But hey, we're just less than 48 hours away. But first things first, some housekeeping notes. Uh, we are as well beyond the arc. We are part of the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. Make sure if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube and also check out some of the other shows covering MMA, NFL, even Real Talk with Jay. A bunch of good shows out there. You won't want to miss those. So make sure you hit subscribe before we go ahead. And also, if you can't catch us on YouTube, be sure to catch us on Spotify, especially. And Montana, let's roll. In between our last show, the NBA draft, the 2022 NBA draft took place. Um, some surprises. A lot of folks had Jabari Smith out of Auburn going number one, but it was Paolo Banchero out of the Pacific Northwest by way of Duke going number one overall to the Magic. Gonzaga's Chet Holmgren going second to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Jabari Smith falling to number three to the Houston Rockets. Montana, any specific surprises or anything that stood out from to you from the draft from last Thursday?
So I would say that number one pick did surprise me a little bit, but I actually had Chet going first. I really did. I think that, you know, Chet's a top four draft pick. So saying he's underrated, it would be ridiculous. When you're a top five, even top 10 draft pick, I mean, you really made it. It's really a compliment to be in that top 10. So is he underrated overall? No. But I think people don't expect him to blow up like I think he will. And I think that Oklahoma City, we've got ourselves a super talented young core that's going to be built up within that city. And I think that we are going to see Oklahoma City in the playoffs as soon as this next season. And a big part of that is thanks to who they got at number two. I mean, Chet had a great season at Gonzaga. Obviously, one and done. Everybody saw that coming. I would have liked to see him develop maybe a bit more, but of course, so many one and dones nowadays. I'm not shocked that he's one of them. But he had a great career, if you can call it that. I don't know if I could call a season a career,
What
but we're
what
gonna
when
we're
your
gonna
career
we're gonna say he had a great
it
career at
still
Gonzaga.
counts?
It does, yeah, and it does. I mean, he 14.1 points per game, 9.9 rebounds per game. The thing I like the most though is that 3.7 blocks per game. I think this man is going to be a threat on both ends of the ball, and I think he truly is going to make Orlando wish they picked him first. I think that the person, Duke produces legends, but I think that Chet is going to be the real deal. I think he, by far, leaps and bounds, will be the best player in this draft. So I was a little shocked he didn't go number one. But other than that, I mean, most of my picks were pretty spot on. I know we never really actually talked about them in the show, but I had picked the top 10 pretty close to what it actually was. So no real surprises except for that number one spot I was a little surprised about. What about you?
Yeah, I think I was. I mean, I think the top three Warner surprise. The order from number one and three, I had them flipped. I really thought that Jabari Smith was going to go number one overall. But I think you couldn't go wrong if you're Orlando, Oklahoma City, or Houston. I think those are the three guys, the headliners in the draft, and I think not overly surprised. You can go worse than Paolo Banchero at number one. I think all three are going to turn out to be terrific players, but time will tell. I was surprised to see Wisconsin's Johnny Davis fall to now all the way to number 10 to the Washington Wizards. I thought he'd be picked a little bit higher. Still a lottery pick. There's been some other guys that have fallen to number 10 that have had pretty solid careers. I mean, the one that sticks out in my mind is Paul Pierce back in the day. I think in the 98 draft, he fell to 10th when he was expected to go a little higher. But top 10, still nothing to be ashamed of. Um, Ohio State's EJ Liddell in a lot of the mock drafts was projected to go anywhere from 18th to 25th overall. He fell into the second round. Slight surprise. But once you get into the late teens, early 20s, a lot of those guys can fall out of the first round and get in the second round anyway, which is exactly what happened with EJ Liddell. Um, Nikola Jovic, not to be confused with the Joker Nikola Jokic, going number 30 to the Heat, kind of surprised me a little bit. Um, the names are pretty close. Games, other than height, not too similar. I mean, they both got skills, but the fact that he got picked in the first round by Miami, I thought that would be someone that would be a second round pick, kind of a stash that guy and bring over later on. But first round pick, they might expect him to do some things here right away. The funniest thing that happened to me, or not to me, but that I thought was ironic, was at number 12, the Oklahoma City Thunder acquired the rights to a guy named Jalen Williams. And then in the 34th overall pick in the second round, the Oklahoma City Thunder acquired the rights to a guy named Jalen Williams. One is spelled Jalen, the other one is Jaylin. And they recreated the Spider-Man meme after they were introduced to the one where they're pointing to each other and things of that nature. I thought that was hilarious. I hate to be their coach and their teammates to try to figure out. They got to come up with nicknames for each other, or they got to differentiate. But that's going to be hilarious going forward. But hey, the Oklahoma City Thunder have 11 billion picks in the next 5 years in the draft. So other than that, I mean, the Bulls draft pick for personally as a Bulls fan, Jalen Terry out of Arizona. I'll be honest, I never heard of him. I haven't been following college basketball as closely as I have in recent years, but 6'7" kid, 7'1" wingspan, supposed to be a 3-and-D guy, very young, a lot of room to develop, but we'll see. So that's pretty much it as far as my take on the draft. All
No, yeah,
right. Well, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no. Yeah, that was all I had. I didn't know where I was going with that. So yeah,
That's all right. Well, the draft was held in Brooklyn, and the team's NBA team is in all sorts of, I don't even know if you want to call it turmoil, but just like daytime soap operas, there's a lot of drama going on in Brooklyn right now. Some of it alleged, some of it true, but a lot of it has to do with star guard Kyrie Irving. Is he staying? Is he going? Does he want to stay? Does he want to go? Um, he yesterday he picked up his $36.5 million player option, so he is now under contract with the Brooklyn Nets officially for one more year. Doesn't necessarily mean he's there to stay, but Montana, between Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, um, even some of the rumors going on with Nets coach Steve Nash. I mean, what do you make of the potential fall of the Brooklyn Nets here?
so what my thought on this is, I think that they are going to definitely keep their best players in Kyrie Irving and KD. Obviously, Kyrie, everyone's like, oh, he trolled the league, this and that. People thought he was leaving. There was all those rumors of him having some serious interest in the Lakers. I was not too excited about that, to be honest with you. It ended up me spending like 4 hours thinking, would I rather have Russell Westbrook or Kyrie Irving? And it was just back and forth the whole time. But I think that this is going to be the season where they either make it or they fall apart at the end of next season. I think that they will
Sure.
retain their stars and they'll retain their status as a team that, I mean, after these last playoffs, I wouldn't consider them a threat, honestly. But they've got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, so they're always going to be and I guess we can throw Ben Simmons in there if he decides to actually play. I don't even know if that's worth even mentioning him, honestly, at this point, but I think that this season will be the season that determines what happens next. I think that if Steve Nash has a season that I think this team is going to have, that he's going to be out after this season. I think we're going to see Steve Nash. I think we're going to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving all gone. I don't think that this is a team that's going to make it work. And I think that this next season will be their time to make it work or move forward. So I think that the mess is only going to get worse. I really don't think there's any player or any, team that can really trade I don't think they're going to retain anyone that's going to help fix that situation. I think that it's not going to completely fall apart this time, but this time next season, I think we're going to see a lot of people leaving Brooklyn. So I am not shocked, that Kyrie Irving ended up opting in. I thought that's what he was going to do the whole time. Um, Pretty much anything that he says or anything that you think he's going to do, it's probably going to be the opposite. So everyone thinking he was leaving, I'm like, he's more than likely not going to. So I was never shocked that he opted in and is more than likely sticking around. But I think that it won't be enough. I think this time next season, that Nets dynasty that they so thought was going to happen is going to disintegrate. So it's just a matter of time. I think that team is a ticking time bomb, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. And for those watching us on YouTube, keep the comments coming. We're gonna get to your questions on specific players where we think that we're gonna end, where they're gonna end up. Excuse me. So keep those coming. We will address them. We have the whole second half of the show just dedicated for that. So keep those questions coming. Look, as far as the Nets go, I mean, even the producers and the writers of Young and the Restless are blushing at all the drama and all the rumors and the backstories of what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets. A lot of it is centered around Kyrie Irving. He came out and he was trying to negotiate a long-term deal with the Brooklyn Nets, and Brooklyn, and GM Sean Marks, rightfully so, wants some sort of assurances that he's actually going to play and he's actually going to be someone he can depend on. The Nets wanted incentives in that contract, and Kyrie wanted everything guaranteed. So they last week, like we said, they came to an impasse, whatever the hell that means. Um, then there was speculation on whether or not he's going to opt into his player option. Is he going to be traded? Is he going to leave as a free agent? He had a whole list of teams that he wanted to go to, but of all of them, only one of them was remotely interested in, and that's the Lakers. And like you said, you were banging your head against the wall on, okay, would you rather have Kyrie Irving or Russell Westbrook? And, if all of a sudden Kyrie Irving, who said that he was not going to leave Kevin Durant hanging in Brooklyn, is going to be out the door, well, then if he's out, Kevin Durant wants to be traded, which makes things complicated because Kevin Durant just re signed before last season. He signed a 4-year, almost $200 million extension. I'm sure there's teams that would want Kevin Durant, but then now you're talking about potentially losing your top 2 players, who, by the way, weren't enough to get you out of the first round against the Celtics last year. So, a lot of moving pieces there. Kyrie Irving opted in. I don't think he's going anywhere this year either. There is always the chance that he can be traded at some point. But I think Kyrie's staying at least for this year. KD is staying. Steve Nash is an interesting name. You said that if it doesn't work out after this year, he might be gone. I think by midseason, if it doesn't work out, he might be one of the first coaches fired at midseason. For whatever reason, he doesn't have the respect of Kyrie Irving. It was rumored that Kyrie Irving would run his own practices after Nets practices. Part of that might have been to get some extra work in, to get back in shape, but part of it may be because he just didn't jive with Steve Nash at all. And even it was alleged at a I don't know, an outing at Steve Nash's house, Kyrie Irving went up to him, and now granted he can be just busting some balls here, but he went up to and said, "Okay, let me go see those 2 MVP trophies of Kobe's that you stole from him." You know, Hopefully he was just busting his balls. That'd be pretty funny. But if not, it's just another thing, another example of why he doesn't respect his head coach, which obviously could be a problem. So not only that, but then you have, for Ben Simmons, you have all that drama coming in. Is he going to play? Is he going to be ready to go, or is he not? What about other free agents? Patty Mills, is he going to stay, or is he going to go to another team like Boston, for example? Andre Drummond, Bruce Brown, who broke out in that first round of the playoffs. So, man, just when we thought that things couldn't get more interesting, the Brooklyn Nets are here to spice up our days every day, and that's not going to be the last that we hear about them. So, from Brooklyn, going over to another borough in New York, Manhattan, home of the New York Knicks. I don't know about you, Montana, but I'm not really sure what the Knicks are doing here. In last week's draft, they had a lottery pick, traded out of it, got a couple more future picks, traded some of those, moved around, and didn't end up drafting a player last week. It's rumored that they're trying to clear up some cap space for this year's free agent class, which isn't the most juicy. So, Montana, Do you have any idea what the Knicks are doing? Because I sure as hell don't.
I don't think the Knicks know what they're doing. Honestly, I don't. I don't think they have for the last 10 years. Arguably, you could say longer. I don't know. The Knicks have had minimal success since the '90s. When they've had quote unquote successful seasons, they really have not been successful, especially for a franchise that is viewed as one of the mega sports franchises. I don't know. I don't know how they are still considered that because all the other, mega sports franchises have won or at least made it to a championship in the last 20 years. The Knicks have not been that team, I don't think. And we look at the players they've drafted the last 10 years. Have they even drafted anyone that has done that much for their team? They've drafted players that have gone to other teams and had more success, but I just don't think that the Knicks have a clue. The one redeeming thing I will say is if they make some big off-season moves that we can look back at the draft and say, okay, this makes sense. If there's some tie-in, if there's some plan, then maybe they can redeem themselves. But that would have to be one hell of a plan because I
And
don't
it's got to
know that.
work.
Yeah,
And the plan's got to
exactly,
work.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like we have not seen a plan for. Like, we have not seen it work for them in years. So personally, I don't think they know. I don't think that there was any rhyme or reason for this. I think they just made a really not great blind decision and I'm sure they have a reasoning and I'm sure they have a plan, but it's just the Knicks haven't had a plan that's worked in forever. And they got rid of some front office pieces that may have been holding them back. And they had that really nice season, not last season, but the season before, where they like started to play like a team that I thought honestly, they might be, and we can do this in another episode, but they might be the team that disappointed me the most this last season, especially after their performance in the playoffs just the season before. So
Sure.
it's always going to be, in my opinion, one step forward and 5 to 6 back for this organization. It seems like they take a step forward and then they just shoot themselves in the foot, or they just take a huge step back. So I don't think that there is any groundbreaking plan or any groundbreaking offseason move that they're going to be able to make. But there's definitely some names floating around that if they could get, they might make a push and show a little glimpse of success. But I don't think, personally, I don't think that they are going to make any big moves. They need to, but I just don't. I don't know if I see that happening. So I think that they just took about 10 steps back with that whole draft situation.
Yeah, so I'm gonna date myself a little bit. One of my favorite sitcoms of all time was Perfect Strangers. And Larry Appleton, in every episode, it seemed like at some point would be like, I have, which his cousin Balky would then reply, oh God, a plan. And the reason he said that is every time he said that, there was a plan that he came up with that turned into a disaster, and they had to find themselves out of that. Larry and Balky are the New York Knicks right now. But we've seen this before from the Knicks with prior regimes. They tried to clear up cap space in 2010 and go after LeBron James. Guess what? They didn't get LeBron. They've tried to clear up cap space numerous times, thinking that the allure of New York City and Madison Square Garden is going to attract free agents. That hasn't happened since the late '90s. So they're gambling a lot here, and especially with a free agent class that, like I said before, isn't too juicy in my opinion. But they have been linked to some free agents, and we'll get to these guys in a second. They've been linked to Jalen Brunson. Um, I think DeAndre Ayton is somebody that can go out there. Maybe they're pining for a trade and to bring in a star like a Bradley Beal or somebody like that. But they're banking on um, bringing in these guys that, quite frankly, it's not a guarantee that they're going to come to New York and play for the Knicks. You mentioned their draft. I don't know how you say it. I guess we'll just say history in lieu of a better way of putting it. Um, Last guys that I remember that actually did anything solid for the Knicks. Well, number one is R.J. Barrett from a couple of years ago, and he may be the very first Knicks draft pick in years to sign an extension with the Knicks. And the last time that happened was Charlie Ward in the mid '90s. A Knicks draft pick to sign an extension with the guys. And then the other draft pick that I can think of that actually did, panned out for, a couple minutes was Kristaps Porzingis, and we know where he's at. He's in Washington there. So We'll see what happens with the Knicks, but man, I think they're playing with fire here. So, well, I don't think Montana, our viewers and listeners, want to hear us talk about the New York teams anymore. Let's get to NBA player and that way we can get on to what everybody really wants to know, where their favorite players are heading. So, guys, another great episode of NBA player most of you that have followed well beyond the arc and have been with us here know how the game is played, but for the newbies, we will go over it again. Every week, I pick 5 random names, and Montana has to tell me whether they are NBA, either current or former players, or somebody from a different profession. And every week, I choose a different profession to keep Montana on his toes. To date, Montana is 28 for 40, 28 correct, 12 incorrect, coming off a 4 for 5 showing last week. And if I give Montana a name of someone and he gets that name correct, everyone watching and listening to us will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you, Johnny Drama. And if Montana gets the name incorrect, he will hear this sound. Simple enough. Montana, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. This week's category is NBA player or Olympic figure skater.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'm not
I'm
too
not gonna
confident.
lie. I didn't know these names until I looked them up earlier today. So if it makes you feel any better, I don't know who these guys are either. But I will give you this: they are all medalists. At least the Olympic figure skaters are. So at least they're not just some random guy from Norway or Latvia that no one's ever heard of. So at least I've given you medalists. But anyway, name number 1. Montana, is this the name of an NBA player or a former Olympic figure skater? The name is Bailey Howell. Bailey Howell.
I'm gonna start with figure skater.
No. Bailey Howell is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Career averages of 18.7 points per game, 9.9 rebounders in 950 career games with the Pistons, Celtics, Baltimore Bullets, and the Philadelphia 76ers, mostly during the 60s and early 70s. 0 for 1. Let's get back on track here. Montana. The second name. Is this the name of an NBA player or former Olympic figure skater? The name is James Grogan. James Grogan.
Oh. I'm gonna go with figure skater.
Victory! And you would be correct. James Grogan was a bronze medalist at the 1952 Winter Games. I don't know where they were, but I know it happened in 1952 because Google and Wikipedia told me. All right, name number 3. Is this an NBA player, Montana, or an Olympic figure skater? The name is David Jenkins. David Jenkins.
Oh man. This will be my third time saying this, but I'm gonna stick with figure skater.
Victory! You would be correct. David Jenkins, no relation to Leroy Jenkins, former Olympic figure skater, bronze medalist in the 56 games, and a gold medalist in the 1960 Olympic Winter Games. All right, 2 for 3. On to the fourth name. Is this an NBA player or former Olympic figure skater, Montana? The name is Sven Nader. Sven Nader.
I'm gonna go with NBA player.
Victory! And that is a good choice. Sven Nader, former center, played between 1974 and 1984, career averages of 12.4 points a game, 11.6 rebounds, and 722 career games, split time between the Milwaukee Bucks, Buffalo Braves, who are now the Los Angeles Clippers, San Diego Clippers, and Los Angeles Lakers. All right, 3 for 4. Can we finish off your second consecutive 4 for 5? Name number 5. Brian Quinnett. Brian Quinnett.
I am going to go back over to figure skater.
Oh, Brian Quinnett. I haven't had one of those guys averaging 3.4 points per game, but here's another one. 3.4 points per game average, 1.6 rebounds in 138 career games with the New York Knicks. I think we've talked about the Knicks more in this episode than any other episode we've ever had, and the Dallas Mavericks. So, all right, 3 for 5. That brings your total to 31 of 45. Better luck next week at a 5 for 5 Montana. No, I don't know if you do. You secretly love figure skating?
Definitely not, because I did not do as well as I should have if I did. I didn't know some of those key names, but I got to do my research on that now. Going
There,
five. See, I saw this Montana going 5 for 5 comment in the beginning, and I definitely let them down because I did not go 5 for 5. But at least I didn't go 0 for 5. That's
well, I'm encouraged that you didn't go 0 for 5, and I'm also encouraged that you didn't get a 5 for 5 with the category like figure skating. So all signs are good on this end. All right, folks. You guys have been asking some names of potential free agents and guys that are caught up in trade rumors. We're going to tell you where we think they're going to go. I've seen a couple names come up here first. A couple names have already been traded or have signed. One was Christian Wood. I think I saw a comment there. Christian Wood was traded before the draft from the Houston Rockets to the Dallas Mavericks. So he'll be a Dallas Maverick come in the fall, and returning to Houston are a bunch of spare parts, a bag of basketballs, some popcorn, and my boy Boban Marjanovic. Hopefully Boban makes some friends or gets bought out there. And then another name I thought I saw was Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant was traded by the Detroit Pistons before the draft to the Portland Trail Blazers. So Jeremy Grant will be in Portland next year unless they surprise everybody and turn around and trade him somewhere else. So just want to get those two out of the way. All right, Montana, I know there's a couple names you wanted to get to. One is now a former point guard for the Houston Rockets who is reported to have a new home, and that's John Wall. Um, what do you think of that move? What do you think of the John Wall move?
I think that was huge. I think that they have been needing that piece that I really think John Wall could be. He's gone through injuries. He's had not the greatest last couple of years, but I think he's going to have a bounce back season. And I think that I hate to say it because I'm definitely not a Clippers fan, never will be. No matter what my Lakers look like, I'm never going to root for the Clippers. But I am rooting for John Wall because I think that people have forgotten just who he was. I think he very well could have gone down as an all-time, top 15, top 20 guard had he not gotten through some of those injuries. So, do I think he's going to put up the numbers that he was putting up, for the Wizards when he was in his prime? No. But I think he is going to be a guy that you can rely on. The way I like to put it is he is a more controlled Russell Westbrook because yeah, he relies on his speed, not so much maybe now that he's injured, but he's also using his head with his speed, which Russell Westbrook sometimes does not do that. So I think that John Wall is a more controlled Russell Westbrook with the way he plays basketball, which was very reliant on his speed. So I think that we're going to see flashes of that. I think we're going to see very much a Derrick Rose situation. We're going to see a guy come back from some injuries, being down, bouncing between some teams. And I think we're going to see John Wall be a pretty solid guy that can put up some numbers. So I think that this might be one of the biggest pickups of the offseason, which the offseason, at least with free agents and everything, is just getting under. Like, we have so much left. But I definitely think that he is going to be a player that makes a huge change on that team.
Yeah, I think well, one, it's about time that they came to some sort of resolution because there's no way he was going to play for the Rockets again. I think if you guys remember a couple of years back when John Wall first put on a Houston Rockets uniform, he looked pretty good in the beginning, coming off that Achilles injury and being out for parts of a couple of years there. So I think John Wall at 31, 32 years old still has something left in the tank. I think he's got a lot to prove, but he doesn't have to be the main guy in a Clippers team with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who's coming back from injury himself. I'm going to be more curious to see how he fits in that Clippers backcourt, but with a Clippers backcourt of John Wall and Reggie Jackson, who Reggie Jackson was basically helped carrying the Clippers all last year while Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were out. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think good move for the Clippers, good for John Wall. We'll see how it works out. But from John Wall going to the defending world champion Golden State Warriors. I know they have a couple free agents. We talked about it last week. We mentioned that we don't think they're going anywhere. Andrew Wiggins is a free agent. I personally don't see him going anywhere. But there's also Gary Payton II, Kevon Looney, Otto Porter Jr., Jordan Poole is eligible, extension eligible. Montana, what do you think the Warriors are going to do with their free agents, and who's staying, who's going?
Well, it's crucial that they retain some of those guys. Do I think they need all of them? No, they don't need all of them. There's going to be more moves that are made within the offseason that will fill some of those positions. Do they need Otto Porter? I don't think that's a crucial piece. Do they need Looney? Again, I don't think that's a crucial piece. But Wiggins 150% is. I'm going to say Gary Payton II is also a crucial piece because he had some insanely good games this last season. People do not, and he also had, I think, that job on most sports teams, not just basketball, of being kind of that secret weapon type guy that they know his worth, they know what he
X
brings,
Factor. Yep.
but not everyone else is going to know that. So I think him, and Wiggins are crucial. Get those guys. If you can figure out Looney and Porter, maybe, but not crucial. But I would say Wiggins by far is crucial. I think that all the talk, and we kind of went over this last time, all the talk, everything going on, throughout his career, he came in, people said he was a bust, people said this and that. He was just put on too high of a pedestal too quickly. I don't think that he was given a fair shot, to be honest with you, because he did show flashes of talent his whole career. It's just he finally made it work when he got to Golden State. And let's be honest, I mean, were the Timberwolves making it work when no. It was also the team that he was a part of. It wasn't just, it was a situational thing, in my personal opinion. So I would say that you keep those key pieces. If you lose Porter Jr. and you lose, Kevon Looney, they'll definitely find a new home. And I'm sure the Warriors won't lose too much sleep over losing those guys. But if you can retain most, if not all, of a championship winning team, that's sometimes one of your best chances to go back to back. We saw it with those Pistons teams, in the 89, 90, that time with, Isaiah Thomas, all those guys. They kept pretty much the same team and made a push the next season. Most of these teams that go back to back keep the same group of guys or add on, and so I think that the Warriors' best chance for going back to back is to retain a lot of these guys, but it might not be to keep Looney and Porter Jr. So you definitely keep those other guys in the mix, and then if you can keep Porter Jr. and Kevon Looney, I think you also try to keep them as well.
Yeah, I think Warriors GM Bob Myers came out and said that Wiggins and Poole were his two biggest priorities this offseason. Andrew Wiggins isn't going anywhere. He's that young guy who broke out this year, a first-time All-Star, broke out in the playoffs, especially in the finals. And him being a part of that Warriors culture and having been around some winners and some vets like that has done wonders for Wiggins' career. So he's night and day for Minnesota, first of all. Wiggins isn't going anywhere. Poole will be extended. The question marks for me, I don't know if Otto Porter's coming back. If he does, it's on a 1-year vet minimum contract. And if he doesn't, I can see Nicholas Batum from the Clippers coming in, filling that veteran type role on a minimum contract if he doesn't re-up for the Clippers for more money. I see Nick Batum. He fit in perfectly with the Warriors. Kevon Looney, it depends what the market dictates for a guy like that. Don't forget the Warriors have James Wiseman waiting in the wings. Gary Payton II came on this year. It's going to be interesting to see how much he's going to garner in the open market, and if the Warriors are willing to pay him. I guess he was reported to be asking between 16 and 20 million a year. I don't know if that's going to be something the Warriors are willing to pay him. I don't think so. But Gary Payton II returning to Golden State will all depend on, what salary they work out. If the price tag's too high, I see them letting the kid walk, unfortunately. So, that's for the most part. I think the Warriors are going to keep their team intact. One or two pieces from a veteran standpoint, veteran vet minimums. Like I mentioned, I can see maybe Batum going there. Who knows? There might be a big man going over there, stretch four, like uh, oh gosh, the guy from the Timberwolves last year, Blake. I'm going to butcher his name, but other than that, I think Warriors will be intact. So, well, we haven't forgot about the names that you guys have been commenting on, and we'll get to those in just a second. But right now, we're going to throw it over to Jay for a quick word from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
All right. Well, Montana, let's give the people what they want. They're throwing some names out here. Let's just start hitting them. John Collins was mentioned, the Atlanta Hawks. I think he's only 24, 25 years old, just signed a 5-year extension at 25 mil per. For a player of his caliber, who's just a season or two ago was a 20-10 guy, all of a sudden Atlanta's looking to trade him. Do you see him staying in Atlanta? And if you don't, where do you see him going?
So I do see him staying in Atlanta. I think that a lot of this is, I don't want to say scare tactics, but I mean, Atlanta did underperform. Let's be honest. Yes, they made the playoffs. They squeaked their way in, but I mean, Trae Young was making thousands of fans cry just a season before, and most of them were Knicks fans. So he is that guy. I truly think that he is that guy. I think he will end up being, I don't want to say a late bloomer because he's already had success statistically, but I think accolades wise, he is going to accomplish some really, really solid things in the future. I think that he may need to leave that Hawks team to do that. Obviously, he's not a name we're talking about, but I think in the meantime, they're going to keep Collins. I think that they would be ridiculous to let him go because he is a solid player. And just because they didn't have the success that they previously had, it wasn't his fault. I mean, he was one of the bright spots, and he has been since they got him. He has been one of the bright spots for that organization. So I think they will keep him. I think that a lot of that is what we see these organizations sometimes do. They have a bad season. They kind of shop around and see what's going on. But I don't think that they're gonna trade him. I really don't. I think that he is that guy, and I think that him and Trae Young are crucial in that team advancing to the next step if they can.
Yeah.
If they,
Yeah.
I personally, I'm not sold because just like the Knicks, one step forward and then a bunch back. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Hawks are not quite the same market and not quite the same team and the same, stature, but I think that they definitely took a step back, and I think the only way to step forward is to keep a core that's built around players like Trae Young and John Wall, or
Yeah.
John Collins. Excuse me,
John
I'm saying the
Collins.
wrong
All
name
good.
there.
A
But
lot of
yeah, so
Johns. Dear John. Yeah.
but no, I think they keep him. I think it's a lot of scare tactics and a lot of just seeing if they can get anything, just kind of shopping around and seeing what's out there. But I think he remains, I think he stays, and I think the Hawks have a better season next season if he does.
Yeah, I agree that, well, I think he should stay in Atlanta. I don't know what the Atlanta Hawks are thinking and dangling him in trade rumors. Atlanta Hawks got off to a slow start last year because of a lot of key guys being hurt. Ended up picking it up and started playing for the play-in game and got in as the 8th seed where they got obliterated by the Miami Heat. I wouldn't mind seeing John Collins in a Chicago Bulls uniform. I don't know who the Bulls would give up to get him. I think there's a lot of teams that would like to have John Collins in their uniform. Like I said, 20-10 guy, can hit an outside shot, uber athletic, 25 years old, and is on you're going to get him for another 4 years at 25 million per. That's not a max player. 25 million isn't anything to sniff at, but that's reasonable for a player of John Collins' caliber in today's NBA. But I think what the Atlanta Hawks choose to do is going to set off a domino effect of potential moves in the NBA. I actually have John Collins getting traded to Philadelphia. And It's because I think the Hawks want some more backcourt help, and the 76ers have a couple young guards that they can give up. They might send some salary too to clear up some cap space for themselves. Well, if they take John Collins back, there goes that cap space. But I think the Philadelphia 76ers could make this work. Having a guy that's 6'10, uber athletic, that can play alongside Joel Embiid and James Harden, that'd be crazy. Um, I think the Atlanta Hawks are crazy for wanting to trade him, but I can see John Collins going to the Philadelphia 76ers. There's another name that was brought up, and that's Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers. And, I was scratching my head that, why would the Pacers want to trade this guy? But then I realized that he's got one more year on his contract, and he's in a contract year. Pacers are going nowhere. He's not going to re-sign. So this is basically the Pacers' way of getting something back for him. I think the Pacers are needing a big man, and the Pacers will trade Brogdon to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Clint Capella straight up. Clint Capella is under contract for another couple of years. You get another solid guard alongside Trae Young. So you have now Trae Young, Malcolm Brogdon. You probably get some guard depth from the 76ers as well. But now Atlanta needs a big man. And I think they find a way to trade for the Utah Jazz's Rudy Gobert. I don't know who's left to give up. They can package something like a Danilo Gallinari. I'm sure they can make the money work somehow, but I could potentially see a new look Atlanta Hawks team with Rudy Gobert and Malcolm Brogdon there, adding those two guys and subtracting Clint Capella and John Collins. As crazy as that sounds, I can totally see that happening. But as far as Brogdon goes, we'll get to Gobert in a second. Where do you see Brogdon going? Because he's definitely going to be moved at some point.
Well, I see, and that's he definitely is going to be moved. I've had a couple, thoughts on that. I think that I could see him maybe somehow, like it was already said in our comments a little bit ago, potentially going Mavs.
Yeah.
I think that would be a huge pickup for them. I think this Mavs team is doing something special, and why wouldn't you want a player like him on your side for something like that? I think this Mavs team is going to be a team that plays with a lot of vengeance and with a lot of fire. And I think that Brogdon goes. I think we will end up seeing Brogdon on the Mavs. The only thing is I'm not entirely sure what that package would look like and what everything would look like with certain things. But I do think if I see, he's leaving, he's gone, he's definitely out. It's been made clear that he's not going to remain there. So I see him. I see Mavs. That would be my top landing spot. But the trade you said is very interesting, and that could end up benefiting everybody involved. I think that would be a trade that might actually have the most benefit for both sides. So honestly, I think Brogdon's going to the Mavs, but I could also see that trade that you brought. I can see that very well happening for sure.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't go to the Hawks, the Mavs are right up there. The Knicks are going to be interested in everybody and their mother. So I mean that you can't rule out the Knicks. I'm sure they'll get a meeting or at least kick the phones or kick the tires on calling the Pacers to see if they can work out a deal that way. So that'll be pretty interesting to see where Malcolm Brogdon ends up. Jay was asking about if Malcolm Brogdon ends up back with the Bucks. That'd be nice, and I think he'd be a great addition to that team. I just don't know how they make the money work, and I don't think Milwaukee's going to want to go too far over the salary cap, having to pay Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. I think they're going to build around him with, I hate to say, I don't want to say spare parts, but you know, I think that there's a couple guys, and we'll get to the Bucks in a second, and who I think they can pick up that you might be high risk, high reward. Um, but yeah, I think Brogdon. I think it's either the Hawks. I can see the Mavericks too, just like you mentioned. Rudy Gobert a moment ago. Saw a situation where he can go to the Hawks. He's also been linked to my Chicago Bulls, which personally I don't really want Rudy Gobert on the Bulls. But where do you think? And for whatever Utah is desperate to trade Rudy Gobert. Where do you think Rudy Gobert ends up, Montana?
Well, I think this is a situation where I can see two potential landing spaces. I can see the Bulls, and I've seen that he's been linked. I think that would be. I don't want to say a mistake because that man has won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been
Great times.
He's been viewed as one of the better defensive players of the 2010s. Do I think he is? No. Do I think he really deserves all of those Defensive Player of the Year awards or being in the talk he's been in the talk almost every year consistently for the last 5 years. He's been at least in the talk. But I don't think he really is that guy. But I can definitely see the Bulls making a move on that. I can see potentially something with the Knicks. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I can see that being like a superstar. I don't know if I'd call him a superstar, but a star. I can see that
Ghost.
being a pretty realistic pickup for the Knicks. I think that's one of the bigger name people that they definitely might be able to get. But I honestly can see Bulls. I'd say my top two would be Bulls or the Knicks. Will he be able to get anything done on either of those teams? I don't think so, but he could add something to either of those teams because he definitely statistically has had some success. I just don't think he actually has had success. When you look outside of stats, different stats than Andre Drummond, but he's kind of a stat guy, just like Andre Drummond is. They're both big stat guys, but do they really make a big impact on the teams they play on? I don't think so. So I see him being a player that goes Bulls, or my second one would be Knicks.
I think he can make an impact, but in today's NBA, where you need guys that can stretch the floor and have some sort of offensive skill, look at a guy like DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, okay, he's taking a handful of threes, but at least DeAndre Ayton can hit a 15-foot jump shot if you need to, or he has some post moves. He can give you something. Rudy Gobert is the type of guy that you have to give him the ball 5 feet within the basket. Yeah, he averaged 15.5 points per game, but a lot of that was on offensive rebounds and dishes off of drives, which nothing wrong with that. I mean, the guy's 7'3". He'll be, let's say it was the Bulls, right? And the Bulls would probably have to give up Nikola Vucevic, who basically good on offense, but is like a traffic cone on defense. Yeah, he'd help defensively. He'd help get some rebounds. But from what the Bulls do in their system, which a lot of NBA teams are doing with a high pick and roll and ball movement that way around the arc, Rudy Gobert, I mean, you'll be able to, whoever's guarding Rudy Gobert on an opposite team is going to be able to shade off of him and double up unless they get perfect spacing, which with a bunch of guys that, clog the lane and 6'7", 6'10" between those guys and be able to put their arms in the lane and steal the ball. I mean, that's not going to help anybody. So I don't think he's a fit for the Bulls. I do agree that, that could be a possibility. Mention the Hawks, the trade scenario there. Basically, anyone looking for a center, like the Knicks, could be in for Rudy Gobert. And hell, there could be even the possibility with the Phoenix Suns, where you can see a sign and trade with DeAndre Ayton heading over to Utah for max money because he wants the max and the Suns don't want to give it to him. But then you have a $47 million center coming back to Phoenix, so you're paying for someone more that you could have had at $33 million. So now as I talk it through, maybe the Suns are out of it. But Rudy Gobert is definitely going to be on the move. Well, it's just a matter of where he's going to go. Folks that are watching us on YouTube and listening, keep the comments coming. Any other players you want to see us talk about or want to hear us talk about, keep them coming. I'll bring up another name here. Bradley Beal of the Wizards. He can opt out of his deal and be a free agent. He's been linked to a couple different teams, including the Miami Heat, but most likely, from what the rumor mill is saying, is he's opting out of his contract just to re-sign with the Washington Wizards for a 5-year max contract again. Montana, do you think that's what Bradley Beal is going to do, or do you see him going somewhere else?
I don't know why he would go back to I don't know why he would stay with the Wizards. I don't
Me
know
neither.
why.
Me neither.
I also very well could see him doing that, honestly. I'm going to say he's just committed and loves that team, but it's also probably slightly about the money because why wouldn't it be? If you can re-sign, if you can get a big contract and you can stay in a place you've been at for so long, why wouldn't you? So he shouldn't, but I think that is what he'll end up doing. Should he do that? Absolutely not. There are plenty of teams that would love to have Bradley Beal. I think he could be. That's a player that I really wanted the Lakers to go after. Obviously, that has not happened. I don't think it will. But I think that there are plenty of teams that would love to have him and that would pay him well. So I don't know why he would stay in the situation he's been in because it hasn't panned out, not even close. But they've been out of the playoffs more than they have been while he's been there. They've made the
Yeah,
playoffs a handful of times in his whole career that he's been there. So I don't know why he would stay, but I assume it has to do with A, the money, B, just the fact that he's been there so long, and then C, he
being
probably
comfortable.
does love the fans and he's comfortable. So I can see it on that side, but I don't know why he would stay because there's plenty of opportunities other places. So I think he will end up resigning, but I don't think he should.
No, I 100% agree with all of that. The only thing I will add to that is if Kyrie Irving turns around and gets traded and KD wants out, KD's from the Baltimore metro or DC metro area. I could see a situation where KD gets traded to the Wizards of all teams because the Wizards do have some young pieces they can give up to match salaries with the Nets for KD. And I don't think the Nets would mind getting back some of those young pieces, like maybe they take back a Porzingis or they take a Kyle Kuzma, a couple guys like that. Who knows? But it's a stretch. But in the event Kyrie decides to go and KD wants out, I can see that happening. And for that, Bradley Beal would be smart for staying. But I'm with you. I don't understand why Bradley Beal wants to stay in Washington, but I admire his loyalty. I'll give him that. A couple more guys we want to get to. I mentioned DeAndre Ayton of the Suns just a moment ago. He wanted the max. He wants the max, excuse me. Phoenix doesn't want to give it to him. He's a restricted free agent, which means he can go sign an offer sheet with any other team, and the Suns do have the right to match it to keep him. Um, I think personally, Montana, I think DeAndre Ayton's going to go find a team that's going to give him as much money as possible, obviously. And I think that team could be the New York Knicks, especially if they strike out on Gobert, they strike out on some of these other big name guards, even Jalen Brunson being linked to them. If he doesn't leave the Mavericks for them, I think they go after a big name. And I think Ayton could go to the Knicks, and the Suns can then backfill the center position with someone that's cheaper, like Portland's Yusuf Nurkic, who's a double-double guy. Has a lot of similar skills in Nikola Jokic. He's a homeless man's version of Nikola Jokic. But where do you have Ayton going? Do you see him staying? Do you have him going? And if you have him going, where do you have him at?
So I have him staying, and I think that they will get everything sorted out. I think that he very much deserves the money that he wants. I think that he was one of the most crucial pieces of that Phoenix team turning around. You're going to hear the Chris Paul. You're going to hear, you're going to hear that Devin Booker. But let's talk about DeAndre Ayton and his impact on that team. Did they get it done? No, they did not. And actually, they were farther off than they were before from getting it done and getting a chip, back to Phoenix. But he was a bright spot, and he's been a bright spot. So I think that this will end up panning out, and he'll end up staying. I think that Phoenix has a lot of things that they have to figure out because I think they're kind of at a standstill. They've made it up. They've really made it up from where they were even just 5 years ago. They've really started to turn things around to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and be a team that people will probably consider in that top 4 or 5, championship team possibility this next season. I'm sure there'll be a team that is considered a contender early on, if not even before the season starts. If you lose Ayton, it doesn't matter who you get back. I don't think you get a player back that will match the impact that he has and will have on that team. And I hope they see that, or they very well could be screwing themselves because I don't think there is a player they could get back that would be worth it. I really don't. And I hope and maybe they'll figure that out and come to a conclusion and come to, meet in the middle a little bit. But it doesn't look like that's not happened at all so far. They've had ample opportunities to really show him they want to keep him and show him that they think he's worth what he thinks he's worth. But I I think that this is another situation of one step forward and like 10 back if they lost him. Would they still
Yeah.
be a successful team? I do think they could still be successful, but I think he stays. But if he does leave, I can see the Knicks. I can definitely see the Knicks. Again, I think that's another realistic superstar that team could get. So I see him staying, but my second, best guesstimate would be that he'll go to the Knicks if nothing else.
Yeah, I don't get the Phoenix Suns. They shell out 120 million to a 36, 37-year-old Chris Paul, beginning of last year for the next 4 years, so 3 more years to go. But yet you have a guy like DeAndre Ayton, #1 overall draft pick, who's been pretty steady for you. Works out in your offense a little bit. Yes, there was some drama towards the end of the playoff series with the Mavericks, but they should have had him extended a long time ago. I think he's gone. I think that just shows that the Suns are cheap. They're willing to replace DeAndre Ayton with someone like a Yusuf Nurkic. I can even see Andre Drummond going to the Suns. I completely agree. They don't make up for the impact that Ayton has, but if Phoenix screws this up, they can very well turn into be the New York Knicks of the West here really, really quick. And no one, I don't think, in Phoenix wants to see that. Couple more, Montana. This one personally scares the crap out of me. Real quick, Zach LaVine, where do you see him going, or do you see him staying in Chicago?
I think he's staying. I totally think he's going to stay, and I think that's a guy I can see being a career type player that stays the rest of his career with the Bulls. I think that he will at least stay through another contract, and then who knows what will happen after that. But I think he stays. I don't see him moving.
Yeah, I think the Bulls have done enough to show Zach LaVine that they're looking to return to prominence. They did make it to the playoffs this season. They were the #1 seed at the All-Star break. Added guys like DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. So you got 3 All-Stars there. They just didn't get it done. Injuries kill that team, obviously. But guys like Zach LaVine don't grow on trees. He's only one of, I think I saw a stat, one of 5 guys in the league to average at least 23 points per game over each of the last 3 seasons. Pretty impressive there. It was rumored that he had interest in signing in with the Los Angeles Lakers, your beloved Lakers. I don't see how the Lakers afford him unless they are willing to go deep, deep into the luxury tax, but that can be said for anybody on this free agent list. So I'd rule the Lakers out. Mavericks are a team that scares me because I think LaVine would be a great fit for the Dallas Mavericks, but at the end of the day, I think the fact that the Bulls can give him that 5th year and offer him the most money, I think Zach LaVine stays in Chicago. I hope he stays in Chicago and make a return to the playoffs next year. Guy that's been a very important piece of the Milwaukee Bucks, Jay's beloved Milwaukee Bucks, Bobby Portis. He's only making $4 million a year. He's got a player option for $4 million next year. I think he's really outplayed that contract. Montana, what do you think is going to happen with Bobby Portis?
That would be one of the biggest question marks in my opinion. I really don't know. I don't think he is going to leave. I think that Bucks team is really going to look to making it back up to the top. They had a successful regular season. I'm not going to say they didn't have a successful playoffs, but as defending champs go, they really didn't have too successful of a playoff experience. So I think they will be looking to definitely make a push back up to the top, and I think that he's a crucial part of that, and I think they know that. So I think he sticks around. I think they figure something out, and I think that is. I think the success we have seen him get has been heavily due to that team and to the role they gave him and kind of what he could do and what he was given on that team. So I think that Portis stays. I think Portis gets it figured out, and Portis sticks around for a decent amount of time. I'm not going to call how long, but I think he will be paid what he deserves, and I think he'll figure it out, and I think they'll work that out.
Look, Milwaukee loves Bobby Portis, and Bobby Portis loves Milwaukee. He is vastly underpaid. That it would be my only concern as a Bucks fan, and I think the Bucks need to find a way to pay Bobby Portis. I don't know who they need to move. They are a small market, middle market team. I would go into the luxury tax. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'd go in the luxury tax for Bobby Portis. My Bulls drafted Bobby Portis. He was a solid player, and then we shipped him off to Washington because he decided to hit Nikola Mirotic in the face. And looking back on that, probably a good move there. But anyway, I mean, if for some reason Bobby Portis doesn't stay in Milwaukee, I wouldn't mind him back in a Chicago Bulls uniform. He'd actually be a pretty damn good fit, bringing some toughness and an inside-out game there. He'd also be a fit, well, for most NBA teams. His game translates to today's NBA. Hell, I could see him going to the Phoenix Suns and being their starting center. That'd be a hell of a pickup for the Phoenix Suns. But ultimately, I think Milwaukee finds a way to get this done. They'll pay him. They'll get into the tax, which I think will be a smart move because I don't think you can afford to lose Bobby Portis if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a couple more people, guys on my list, but we're almost at time. Montana, give me one name that could be available. It's either a free agent or via trade that is kind of your sleeper of someone that could be changing teams that can make an impact on a new squad.
I'm gonna go with. And I'm not gonna say it's not really a sleeper because this guy has been around and he's been doing big things. But I honestly think that Oladipo is going to be a pretty big sleeper. I think that we will not see him in a Miami jersey because I don't think that they are looking to keep him. But I think he's going to make some noise on whatever team he goes to next. So that is one of the biggest people. John Wall was my big one that I think will be because I don't think people are looking at it as big as I think it really is. But someone we haven't talked about yet, Oladipo is definitely someone I think could make an impact. And I think we could see him maybe even going to a team like the Knicks and making an impact on that team. And I'm not going to say reviving his career because can anyone revive their career on the Knicks? Probably not. But I think that could be a very possible landing spot for him. And I think they would kind of give him the keys. So I think Oladipo would be big. And there's so many teams that could benefit from him. So I think he's the big sleeper.
Yeah, I had two guys, and Oladipo was one of those two. You took the words right out of my mouth. I do think I completely agree. I think Oladipo is out of Miami. He basically auditioned for teams towards at the end of last year and made an impact for the Heat in the playoffs. He's only 30 years old, and if he can stay healthy, I do think he would be a fit in New York. I can see the Knicks overpaying to get Oladipo and taking a high risk, high reward contract approach with Oladipo, especially if they miss out on Jalen Brunson. My sleeper is going to be a guy that a lot of NBA fans have forgotten about. And he was all NBA in the bubble a couple of years back, putting up, I think, a 53-point game. And that's TJ Warren of the Indiana Pacers. He's been out and he hasn't played since December 2020 with a foot injury. Was practicing with the team towards the tail end of last year. Don't know how healthy he is, but if he's healthy, 6'8" swingman that can shoot shoots 50% from the field, 37% from three-point land, and improving almost 80% from the line. I mean, that's the type of guy everybody on an NBA squad wants that team. I think that's someone you can pick up on a low dollar amount and high risk, high reward, depending on how much you pay him. But I can see him signing a 1-year prove it type of deal. And if I'm the Bulls, I sign him. I really am. I know I've linked a lot of guys to my beloved Bulls, but I think that's someone that you can fit in the salary cap for 1 year that can make an impact and provide depth. And that's something the Bulls haven't had on the wings is depth. Outside of, they had basically a 7-man rotation, but they had guys in and out of the lineup. TJ Warren, if healthy, will make a difference. There's other teams like your Los Angeles Lakers. Think of teams that want to compete and are looking for, I hate to say a bargain bench deal, but TJ Warren can make an impact on the Los Angeles Lakers. The Knicks, I said everybody and their mother is interested in them. I see the Knicks going after them. Hell, the Dallas Mavericks could take a flyer on them. And the Dallas Mavericks are nothing but wings. If they miss out on some of these other guards and some of these swingmen, TJ Warren would be a great fit down there. So it all depends on how healthy TJ Warren is, but he's my sleeper pick for free agency / player movement 2022. So we'll see what happens. Well, before we go, want to remind everyone, once again, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the Yankee and Brit Sports Group. Well Beyond the Arc isn't our only project. We have some projects outside of this. And Montana, you want to talk about your other podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another podcast called The Connor and Heffernan Show. We're on Podbean, Amazon Music, and then also we are on Spotify. It took me a second to figure out what I was thinking. But so we're on a couple of platforms, figuring out YouTube, figuring out Apple. and currently taking a little bit of a break, but we have about 5 episodes you can go check out, and we just talk all things sports, and we're planning on starting up again soon. So plenty of episodes to tune into in the meantime. So check out the Connor and Heffernan Show.
Yeah, and I have a website by the name of thesportspageblog.com where I've just recently posted my 30-second blog entry, and it's very timely for this episode and we're right on the NBA calendar. I give a list of the my top 30 free agents / players that could be available via trade, and whether I think they're staying and where they're going, and where some of those teams that they could be going, and give a prediction where they're going to end up on opening night of the 2022-23 season. So be sure to check that out, thesportspageblog.com. And I know, real quick, I know we haven't talked about the Lakers much, but we'll sign off with this. We didn't talk about Russell Westbrook much. We definitely didn't talk about Draymond Green until an hour 5 into the show. But Lakers, you got to do something. Make something interesting. Bring back Malik Monk. Young Buck deserves a contract, guys. And who knows? Maybe Melo comes back to the Lakers, or Melo goes to the Knicks. But this time next week, we'll have plenty to talk about. All right. So long, everybody.